to Mary Claire at all? Just
Uh-oh. What happened to Barb? Uh-oh. What happened to Barb?
She does that happens sometimes to her. Her internet can be kind of dicey.
Body.
So
Okay.
she'll be back. And hi Rochelle. We have another attendee, and maybe wait a few more minutes before we jump in with all the official news.
Yeah, I'm gonna give everybody a few minutes. I figure 5:40 should do it or so.
Tia, how are things going at Rahab Sisters?
Busy, and we're changing some of our scheduling, so it's shifting. And that always stresses people out. Little changes, but it's good. Thank you.
I've always thought that was that the service you all do is great. I remember hearing about it years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love the community.
Yeah, it seemed to me that someone from my church used to volunteer from them. From Anthem Family, Anthem Family Church. And so that's where I first heard about it. And I'm assuming it's the same thing because the name of the place was Rahab Sisters. So, yeah. Okay, I better put this on mute.
can I try again?
There you are. There you are. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait, before you do, oh, go ahead. Hold on. I just wanted to have Rochelle say hello real quick. Hello?
Hi.
All right. So Barb, you had some thoughts about what we were talking about the meeting, and can you hold them for just a few more minutes? Because what I want to do is just recap what I said when we get a critical mass. That way everybody can hear your thoughts.
But Celeste, my first one is for you.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Have you spoken with Mary Claire or watched recorded events where she's explained like which part of like what it means to, what do I want to say, comment on directives, like, and what kind of things they can do and things that they can't in terms of changing things and whatever. And I'm really not doing her speech justice at all. And there's very few things I would recommend checking in with Mary Claire about, but this is actually one of them in terms of just explanations. That was my first thought. That is for you, Celeste?
Yeah, and let's circle back around to that and have you repeat it once we get a critical mass. Actually, more than Mary Claire, I've talked with Jared. And Marlon is the one who wanted to bring the policy people in. But I'll hold off on that conversation because I think that's very important to hear, to share with everyone.
Okay.
But good.
I do know I spoke with Mary Claire this week, and I do know that she and Theo she and Marlon were talking to each other. So she may be in the loop already on that. Hello, Anika.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm well. It's somehow Thursday, so I don't know how it happened, but
right
here we are.
Despite best laid plans, the weekend is rapidly approaching, and I love the weekend, but I don't want it to come too soon. Take me unawares and unprepared.
My weekend has already gotten so busy. I'm going to need another weekend after the weekend, which I will not be able to have, but I will wish. I know. I wish. My brother has had a big health crisis, and So, I'm happy to do anything to help, but I was looking at my schedule next week to see if there was any way I could take any time off, and it's just not happening not next week.
I
Mhm.
hear you. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that we really need to go to a 4-day work week and a 3-day weekend.
I agree, Celeste.
The French have been experimenting with it, a couple of other European countries, and I think we just need to recognize that this whole idea of being the prime mover and shaker in the world is what's making us crazy, making us make bad political decisions, Uh,
Yep.
I've been mildly following the split and the spat, I guess I'll call it, between US and France, because they think we're double dealing Yanks because we went behind their back, sold submarines to the Australians. And then we said, well, things are crazy over there in the Pacific. We want to have a toehold. And the French are going, you know what? You Yanks are just unbelievable. You got an excuse for everything. And I just thought, yeah, if we only had a 4-day work week, I'm simplifying things, I'm being facetious, but I'm just saying, if we were only working 4 days a week, we wouldn't be so worried about being in prominent places in the world. We'd be thinking about, my kids sure would love it if I read Clifford the Big Red Dog to them one more time.
Aw.
Something like that. I think the world will be better, but that's just me trying to pull some sense out of nine. All right, what time is it? 5:40? You think we should go ahead and call it? Because this is going to be a quick meeting. Okay, first let me check the chat. Oh, whoa, thank you. So, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. And the plan for tonight's meeting was to have had the police present the stops data that we've been hearing in layman's terms, so we could start hearing what the challenges have been, what the problems have been, and start looking at solutions. And the reason I wanted to have it kind of explained in lay terms was so that we could actually process it and not be overwhelmed with jargon and confusing statistics and what have you. The second part of that was to also have the policy people at PPB to explain what's possible and what isn't. Now, that was Marlon's idea, Marlon Marion. He and I have been working hard to get somebody engaged. Just to keep you up with who I've been talking to, last week, Jared and I met, and he recommended certain people. Marlon and I have been talking off and on quite a bit, trying to get people involved. And the consensus was that we wanted both leadership, wanted both management and rank and file officers involved because of the gulf in workday experience. Leadership sometimes forgets what it's like to be in the trenches, but they are the ones who make sure that whatever suggestions we have turn into policy. And the rank and file officers will tell you the real deal about what it's like to actually have to do this. So Marlon's been working really hard to get somebody involved. So I've been taking that kind of two-prong approach. So Marlon has reached out to Deanna, is it Mitchell Wesson? I'm dyslexic and I always flip names.
I think it's Weston Mitchell. Yeah,
Weston Mitchell, okay.
I think so.
W-M, got it, okay. She, used to be with the mayor's office and now is back on the force and has been working with him quite a bit in the equity department. And so he thought that she would be interested. I reached out to her, she's on leave. So Marlon's trying to reach out to her. He also reached out to a couple of other officers who declined, but it's because they're busy. When I met with Jared, he suggested Stephanie Lorenko, who I used to work with when she was the sergeant of the nerd officers over in what used to be Northeast Precinct. So I actually got a chance, she and I connected this week, Tuesday, and she would be happy to be involved, but she has a conflict, a standing conflict. So she's also going to ask Deanna, because she's trying to woo Deanna over into to work in her office. So one of the challenges has been, as Theo, you know, is getting critical mass of people who can be attached to the PCCEP effort. So next month, we should have somebody here to discuss the stops data, to help us start figuring out what we can do. And to that end, I just want to encourage everybody to invite folks. I wanted to, and Barb has some ideas, you know, about the process. And then just get any input you have so that we can help shape this meeting to make it really meaningful and kind of get that momentum going again. So because I asked you to graciously set everything on hold, you now have the floor, Barb.
Okay, if there were more community members here and anybody else wanted the floor first, anybody else is welcome to have it, because I will always go first and I will always have stuff to say.
No worries.
So feel free to not call on me first. But speaking of going first and what I'm thinking about, I already had made a comment to you about just checking, either watching a recording of it, and I can probably find one, or checking in with Mary Claire about, like, let me give you an example. The policy committee and the secretary, you know, basically wrote out all these changes for the directives and added word, and Mary Claire's like, you know, oh no, you can't like change the whole concept of something, you know, and some things like that that I thought were very useful in terms of knowing about like directives and what can be done policy wise there. And that's kind of the main policy, the only policy that the police follow. But other thoughts I'm having are, when is that stops data from? 2 years ago? What did you say? 2 something. I saw that.
Sorry. I said good question.
Oh, good question. So
Hold on just a minute. I got my screensaver making too much noise. Let me turn it down.
okay. She disappears. This is so cool. It's like magic, like that romper room mirror.
I believe it's May 31st, 2020 to November 17th, 2020.
Yes.
Okay. So since then, there have been a lot of changes, a lot of intentional changes around how they're stopping people, when they're stopping people, the fact that they only have one.
Okay, we just lost your sound, Barb. We can't hear you.
This is frustrating.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry, it's my internet connection. I thought if I was closer to it, I could be seen and heard on one device. Lesson learned. So what I was starting to say is that the way that the stops are being done has since then, in at least 3 ways that I can think of right now. One directly involved in the fact that that there was bias involved in stops. and some things around that. The chief has given officers, I'm going to say directions, not a directive, on how, not to stop people just because they have a busted taillight if it's not a safety
Right,
concern.
non-essential
Like that.
stops. Uh-huh.
Right. So I'm just not sure. I mean, if it's what do I want to say? If it's we want to understand this so that when we look in a year or 2 years, we can see if it's different, then that would make a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're actually trying to look at that data to make recommendations, we may come up with, I'm not saying we wouldn't come up with some that they haven't thought of. I just wonder how relevant it really is for that.
Actually, those are good points. And when I spoke with Jared, he mentioned something that I thought was interesting, which was a further refinement of the data. And so and this might be a little problematic, but since none of us are sworn, we can, talk without worrying about hurting people's feeling. Like, how deep did the information go? Did it talk about where people were having most of the stops, like what neighborhoods? Did it talk about what shifts this happened on? And he felt that there was room to do additional refinement of this data.
He should pay for it then. I said he should pay for it then.
Well, that's a good point. Okay.
And if he was here, he would have laughed heartily too. I'm going to go to the other room and get juice, but I will be back. And those are just two thoughts to get you going, Celeste.
Uh-huh. The other thing that he was asking is like, perhaps we need to address this. There was, as he said, a procedural justice element, like PPB officers explaining why they were stopping people. So I know there's been some changes, but I guess the question would be, is there more to be done with this data? Have we heard it in a way that can be presented and give us fresh ideas into ways of improving the relationship with the police? So that's, I guess, what I'm hoping. I mean, what you're saying, Barb, is very important, and you're right. This is older data. We haven't had anything recent done, but I don't know that we've learned everything we can from it yet. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And one more thing, since it's just us here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Bedroom door. I can't change who I am, and I am a scientist. So if y'all need I'm not like super good with statistics or anything, but if you need someone to look through stuff or do whatever, I very well might be able to do it for you. And I'm pretty cheap. You just have to buy me coffee or lunch or whatever. Okay, now I'm going to be quiet for a bit.
So, based on what Barb has said, what are your thoughts about how we can move forward this with some fresh eyes and get some fresh conclusions? Anyone? Oh no, don't tell me I asked the question to stump the panel.
I am curious on how frequently they can run the data, because I'm super interested in what the change has been since they decided not to enforce mechanical violations, like your registration's expired or your you know, your turn signal light is out, and really focus on other, I mean, we have so many other things going on with the police right now. I'm not sure
Hmm.
that we could, you know, get completely clear on what the root, the cause and effect is, but that would be interesting to know, even if they run it by month, whether that's made any difference.
So how often are they running the data is the question. Okay. How often is data collected? Okay.
I think the idea of having someone come in to explain it is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna be quiet.
Okay. Any other thoughts for either the process for the meeting or what we want to get out of this explanation and discussion?
I had a question
Yeah, Tia.
that goes with that is, once the citations come in from the stops, do the police officers themselves compile the data, or who does an outside entity compile it?
Okay.
So when you say the stops data, who puts it together? Is it the PPB themselves?
And
I don't know if that matters, just if it's skewed, or I don't know.
Now that is a
yeah,
good
you're
question.
right. Tia, you're right, because when the officers give out a ticket or anything, they don't ask, you know, what heritage do you identify with? They just write down whatever they think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the places that is really, I'm going to say, messed up, because they can't get good data when that, you know, you can't get good demographic data if that's the way you're doing it, in my opinion. There's a huge gray area that isn't being sliced and diced.
Just on that piece, it's really difficult to ask that question, especially when folks who are undocumented,
Mm-hmm.
fearful of that question, won't answer no matter what, and shouldn't be asked to do so. So I don't think that will ever be a question that police officers should or can ask in Portland.
I wasn't suggesting that, right? I just was pointing out that it's something that is important when you're looking at the data, I guess. Maybe they'll just tell us next month. I'll be quiet, sorry.
No, I think I've asked that same question, Barb, especially about Indigenous people, because that's where a lot of my personal interest is. Like, how do they collect information on Indigenous folks who look white, who look Black, who look Latinx, Latino, Latina? How do they collect that data? And they don't have a good answer for it. But it's not because they aren't interested. It's because there's not a good way to collect that information. Rochelle, you have your hand up.
I do. I think it would be a good idea if, in addition to inviting the police to explain the data, you invite the community to explain their perception of what's going on, because oftentimes what data says, interpreted by a certain group, is not what people are experiencing. And I think it would be a good idea if you invited organizations of people of color in particular, but other organizations also, to see if they have experienced any change, or if they just see it the same old way that they always have. Thank you.
Okay, let me make sure I captured that, because that was a good question, a good point. So just to invite the community to kind of answer how they've interpreted their interactions with the police. Is that what you're saying, Rochelle? Or how the
Well, interactions, but also their experience if in fact they are getting stopped for minor things like turn signals or expired plates or whatever. Or if they're still getting stopped for those things. I would particularly be interested in young people who are driving and their views of whether they're getting stopped as much or not.
Okay, so was the end date for this data, did you say the end date was May 2020, Theo?
I'm not sure on that. I initially
Okay.
said November 17th was the end date.
Oh, okay, okay. So
But
it has been almost a year is what I was concerned about. Yeah,
I'll have to double check.
okay. And then in terms of them making the changes for not stopping for these non-essential issues, that's only been a few months though, correct? So it's not enough time to really see that, but I think we still should ask that question. I still think that's a significant question. Okay. Anything else anybody's thinking about how we want to process this?
Oh, Tia, go ahead. No, you got nothing?
Okay.
So I agree that it would be important to hear from the community about how they're perceiving things. I'm not sure a public forum is the best way to capture that. And I guess in trying to think that sort of through from maybe a trauma-informed perspective or just playing the tape forward, I think if it was at the same meeting, which I'm really not thinking that would be a good idea.
I wasn't, yeah.
Would be that people gave their perceptions before we gave the data.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're just going to keep getting hotter and hotter waiting.
Well, I thought it would be better to have that be a separate meeting and that would be something that the community could collect that information. And then it might have to be after, if we're getting these people next month. But whether we hear it before or not, I think we can still process what they're saying in light of the information we hear from the police. So I think maybe that would be, okay, that'll be the October meeting. That would be a good November meeting. So I'm hoping to get a critical mass of people. We're gonna send the word out and post it on the website when Claudia is back from vacation, what we're planning on doing. And I think your Facebook and the website should do it. And that should draw some people in, but we can also invite people. And I did ask Theo to invite the two amicus partners as well, AMA and MHS. So hopefully this will be a productive meeting. That's the point. And to your answer, I'll be watching and rewatching some of the videos again so that I can do a really good job at facilitating this meeting, Barb. I know you're in a whole different role, Anika, but do you have any thoughts of how we can either look at this data and come up with some fresh perspectives or any process for the meeting?
I mean, I would say that, I think you'd probably have more clarity on what you may want to ask if like Marlon and Mary Claire were present, just to kind of give you some initial information. That would be helpful, because I know the data exists, but I don't feel that I have enough information to kind of help you get set up on that.
Mhm.
I wasn't involved, so I think if you can get in any way some of those initial questions answered ahead of time, that
Mhm.
might be more beneficial.
Okay, so what I'll try to do is meet with them and just let them know we have questions. We want to
Yeah,
look at this freshly. Okay.
yeah. I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction, so or give because I wasn't directly involved. I know it was happening, but I don't know who exactly had been working on those things. Not my ballpark.
Well, no, that's okay. The funny thing is, and maybe it's not funny, it's been hard for me to be able to get access to this data. And so I'm wondering if and when we can even just have, well, it would be a redacted or sanitized or whatever version, but just something published so that the public could look at it. Is that even a possibility, Judith and Theo?
Yeah,
Yeah, because if all possible, I'd like to have that posted so people can look at that and come prepared.
yeah.
Is that,
The thing with those,
okay,
sorry,
go ahead.
Barb, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're going to answer my question.
The thing with those, I don't know if I'm gonna answer your question, but I was just gonna say the thing with those information requests is they do take time.
Mhm.
So if we got it in sooner, it would be easier for the good folks at PPP to accommodate that request. And if you wanted to make it like a formal data request, then we can do that because that's well within PCCEP's purview to make those kinds of requests.
Well, whatever it takes, is that something that you do? Do I need to sign off? What's the process?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, that would be good because if we can have a link to, even if they would just want to get an abbreviated version, if we can have a link on our calendar for the data, that gives people a chance to read it and be informed and ask some informed questions.
So it may take longer. So PCCEP can look at those things and they can make those requests that are provided to PCCEP. Or if it's going to be published more broadly toward the community, then I don't know if it will take longer,
if that's a challenge, don't. But at least get it for us.
I
Yeah.
think that's a conversation worth having because the spirit of PCCEP is to really make it more accessible to the entire community.
Mhm.
So I think that's a conversation worth having.
Okay. So that sounds like something I also need to talk to Mary Claire about, more so than Marilyn, probably.
Yeah, Mary Claire is the liaison for PPP.
Okay. So I'll have a conversation with her about that.
And she really appreciates if folks go through her
Mhm.
because it's her job to keep track of all the PCCEP activity on the police end.
Okay, good.
And it does help, it helps when you're doing the right thing, Celeste, by including PCCEP staff, so we're aware, and including Mary Claire, so she's aware. Like it's sometimes it's just one or the other, but this is both, and it's great.
Well, I've been trying to run everything by you all because, well, you're the experts and my resource. I don't believe in going in without backup. Okay, well, unless there's something earth-shaking that I have missed, or even small but significant, we might be done.
Celeste, is it okay if I contribute something?
Oh, yes, please.
So in my job as the policy advisor for the Office of Equity and Human Rights, one of the things I do is supervise one of our new employees who is our LGBTQAI plus 2 policy person, Lex. And we were talking today because they just did a roundtable with the mayor, the queer organizations came in and did a roundtable. And I asked her if they had brought up police at all. And they didn't really, but one of the things, we were also talking, I had several meetings today where we're really kind of unpacking intersectionality and thinking about that. And, that I just wondered if at some point this group would be interested in trying to take a look at what's happening, particularly for folks of color who are, LGBTQ, especially T, because I think that, trans Black women particularly, they're kind of where the root of all the intersection comes together. And then particularly if they have a disability, you got the whole package. So, it's a and if I think everybody understands, but it's not just about diversity. It's really about looking at that different identities that are marginalized and oppressed by our society come with different kinds of impacts of oppression. And so, if you are, as we know, like if you are Black and a woman, then you are both, trying to navigate the issues of racism and sexism. So when we were talking today and I was asking her, and I had asked her if she knew anybody who might want to join PCCEP or kind of get more involved with that. So just throwing that out is something to think about.
Okay. Lex is most definitely invited to the meetings.
Yeah, I'll see about that.
Okay. And then if anything else pops up, just send me an email, everyone. And okay, let me check the chat and make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, let me save this. Boom. All righty. Well, thank you all for giving up your time. Even though it's a short meeting, I really appreciate your support in trying to get this momentum going. Let people know what we're doing, and I will keep you updated, especially if there's some frightening changes. Hi, Barb. I'm sorry you came in just as we were about to leave, but if you want to stay, I'll fill you in with what we were talking about. It was a very short meeting.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara, we were just wrapping up.
right.
It was a short meeting today.
Oh, okay. Well, I had another meeting, so.
No, that's okay. It was a short meeting. But if you want me to update you on what we're talking about, I'll hang on.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay. Well, the meeting was short because we have made connections with the police, but they weren't able to come to this meeting to explain the stops data, break it down for us so that we can look at the changes that they've made in light of it, how well they're working, and if we need to look at fresh recommendations from it. And so I was entertaining questions from folks on how we might approach this with fresh eyes, how we might come up with recommendations. And then I also asked people what kind of what type of procedure that we want, I was thinking mostly of the police present, then we have question and answers, and then we kind of look at things that might change, we might suggest. Also, the policy people from the police would also going to be there to kind of explain what change processes look like, what the police can and can't do in terms of recommendations from the community. And if it's something that's important to us and it doesn't fit their idea or their process for change, how we can work on that so that the idea doesn't die just because they don't have the tools to
For
do it.
technical reasons, yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty much it in a nutshell. And we've talked about the fact that this data is roughly not quite a year old, and that the police did make some procedural changes in how they're stopping people. Most notably, they don't stop you for expired tags or broken taillights or license, missing or what have you. I don't know if seatbelts is part of that, but those are some of the changes, because those generally happen to marginalized and poor people. And so they're trying to be sensitive, especially given state of the world now, unemployment, et cetera. So, that has not happened though that long ago. So I don't know if we're going to get any really credible hard data on that, but I thought we still could look at the changes that's made, look at the data, see if there's some further refinement, further changes, further recommendations we could make. So Theo's going to try to get us the data for the PCCEP members to look at, so we can ask informed questions. And I'm asking people to invite folks to come and ask questions. And this probably is not going to be a one and done. You know, if we may not even get to the recommendations part yet. It may be just question and answers. And so I'm going to ask everybody to be flexible and help me hold space for everybody to ask questions and get a good understanding.
Okay.
And if we need to work on actually looking at recommendations, that can come later. The most important part is that we all have a firm understanding of what the data is and what we can do with it, what should be done with it, what are the next steps. So that's what we did. How does that sound?
Good.
Okay. Yeah, I was telling everybody, if something occurs to you later that you think would be great for us to include in this meeting, whether it be questions, process, you know, whatever, just shoot me an email, you know, at my Portland, Oregon.gov email. Or ask Theo, you know, and we'll get it done.
Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you, Tia and Barb, Anika, Barbara, Theo, and Judith. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your help, your support, and your involvement.
Thanks, Celeste.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Celeste.
Les.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Everyone.
Night.